Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video. My mom has always been a bit of a basket case. My dad has never been in the picture, so it's always just been her and I. She usually can't hold a job for more than a year, and there's always been a revolving door of boyfriends and husbands coming in and out of her life for as long as I can remember. To say that it was an unstable environment to be raised in would be an understatement. I cut all ties with her a few years back. I'm 32 now, and after dealing with her drama my entire life, I had finally had enough. She had shown up on my doorstep begging for money more times than I could count, and as difficult as it was to turn away my own mother, one night I finally told her no. After that, she didn't come around again, which was surprising because in the past she was always the type to guilt trip me until I gave in and gave her what she wanted. After that last night, I always worried about how she was doing out there on her own. No doubt paying her rent with money she conned out of her boyfriend of the month. But I knew it was for the best to not have contact with her anymore. I have my own life now. I live in an apartment in a larger city about 2 hours away from my hometown. I have one roommate and work as a technology repair technician. It's taken me a long time to build up my life to this point since I started with next to nothing, and I refuse to let my mother continue to show up and cause setbacks. I worked too hard to let her bring me down the way she used to. That's why when she showed up unannounced last night for the first time in years, I knew I had to shut things down between us for good. It was 2 a.m. Leave it to my mother to show up at the most inconvenient times. Rather than hearing the usual doorbell that we are accustomed to, my roommate and I were woken up by loud, non-stop pounding on the door. It scared me half to death, and I stumbled cautiously to the door to look through the peephole. When I saw it was her, I groaned loudly. "What the hell?" my roommate said, rubbing sleep from his eyes as he came out of his room to see what all the commotion was. "Forget about it. Go back to bed," I said. "It's my mom." Hearing this woke him up a little bit, and his eyes widened slightly. "Oh, like the mom from all of your stories? Shit, man." "Yep, that's who." She had come up in conversation before, so my roommate was familiar with how crazy she was. Like when I was in 5th grade and she went on a 3-day alcohol bender, leaving me alone in our trailer home with nothing but ramen noodles to eat. Or when I tried to apply for my first car loan at 21, but realized my credit was completely trashed because she had maxed out multiple credit cards in my name before I even reached adulthood. The list goes on. My mom was still banging on the door. I nodded to my roommate as if to say, "Yup, that's mom. Now go back to bed before this gets ugly." He retreated back to his room, but I knew he was likely standing right on the other side of the door, listening in on us. I took a deep breath and turned the door handle. My mom almost fell into our apartment since she was leaning so heavily against the door. When she regained her balance and looked up at me, I could tell she was still the same old mom. Desperation and sadness filled her eyes. But no matter how much my heart told me to pity her, my gut told me to stick to my guns and stay firm. I couldn't let her tear me down again after all this time. "Oh, Tommy," she said, throwing her arms around me. Her breath reeked of alcohol, and I wasn't surprised. I quickly shrugged her off. "What do you need, Mom?" I said shortly. The faster I could get her out of here, the better. She looked hurt, as if she wasn't expecting this reaction from me. "It's not me that needs help, it's John. They took him down to the police station. All I'm asking is that you spot me some cash this one time to bail him out. I promise I'll pay you back as soon as possible." Now I was confused. "Wait, slow down," I said. Who's John? She laughed out loud as if I was supposed to catch on to whatever was funny. When I didn't respond, she said, "You know, John, my husband." I rolled my eyes. Sure, my mom had countless guys always coming and going, but she always used to at least let me know when she decided to marry one of the poor guys. This was the first time I had heard of John. "No, Mom, I don't know John. How long have you been married?" She squinted her eyes and looked like she was concentrating really hard, trying to figure out how long it had been. Let's see, like 2 years now? We must have just gotten married after you decided to stop talking to me, she said. Here we go with the guilt trips. Yeah, must have been, I said dryly. What did John do? It was the dumbest thing, she said, slurring her words slightly. He just needed to go really bad. But we were hanging outside the bar and he decided to whip it out right there on the street to pee. Except a cop was driving by and saw his you-know-what, and that jerk actually arrested him over it. I pinched the bridge of my nose in frustration. Let me get this straight. You have a husband who I've never even heard of, who just got arrested for indecent exposure. You show up at my house unannounced in the middle of the night, and after all that, you still expect me to pay bail for a guy I've never even met before? She nodded as if this all sounded completely normal. Typical mom. Off in her own little world, so caught up with these ridiculous men that she can't even see how she's negatively affecting her own son. I don't even know why I act surprised anymore. I sighed and weighed out my options. I could slam the door in her face and go back to bed right now and pretend this never happened. Then I'd go back to pretending that my mom didn't exist and try to continue living in my life without her. But I knew if I chose this route, she'd inevitably come back begging for help over and over again. I realized I had another option, and that was to put an end to all of my mom's drama once and for all. I needed to take a stand right now and let her know that after tonight, I wasn't going to be available to deal with her crap anymore. All right, let me get dressed, I said, leaving her in the hallway while I went to put some clothes on. I came back out 5 minutes later and we walked to my car together. She was thanking me profusely all the way to the police station, telling me how grateful she was that I was helping her and that she would never do it again. Except I knew she would never ask me for anything again. I was going to make sure that after tonight she wasn't going to want anything to do with me. We arrived at the police station at about 4 a.m. When we walked in, there were 2 officers waiting for us in the lobby. You the guy who called ahead? One of them asked. I nodded. My mom shot me a confused look. What do you mean, you call them? She asked. Mom, we're going to need to search your bag, the other officer said, reaching for her purse. She looked at me again, horrified. That's when it all clicked in her head. I never intended to come here and bail out John. You bastard! She yelled at me. She tried to clutch her purse so the officers wouldn't be able to look inside of it, but they took it from her before she could get a good grip on it. She started to put up a fight and actually hit one of the officers on the side of the head. In a flash, one of the officers had her turned around with her arms behind her back, cuffing her. The other officer was shining a flashlight in her purse and in no time at all pulled out a sandwich-sized Ziploc bag full of pills. I'm assuming you don't have a prescription for these? The officer asked my mom. Oh, what do you think? She asked him sarcastically. Of course she didn't have a prescription, which is what I was betting on. When I called the police back at my apartment to tip them off about a woman who was in possession of illegal drugs, I didn't know for sure that they were actually in her purse. But my entire childhood, my mom never went anywhere without her precious pills, so I had a strong feeling they would find some in there. Mom, you are under arrest, said the officer who cuffed her. He began to recite her Miranda rights, and they both started leading her through a door at the back of the lobby. "Screw you, kid," she yelled at me as they walked. "Don't ever expect to hear from me again." And that's exactly what I was counting on. I have no idea what happened after that. I assume she's sitting in a cell somewhere waiting to go to trial. But I haven't followed up. All I know is she's probably actually safer in jail than she is out in the world with the scumbag crowd she hangs out with. And now I won't ever have to deal with her taking advantage of me again. Today was the day of my mom's trial. It's been 3 months since I drove my mom to the police station. She's been in custody ever since that day. She called me from jail once she found out when her court date would be. She didn't say much other than telling me the date and time in case I wanted to be there. Then she hung up. I've debated ever since she called me whether I want to go to trial or not. On one hand, I kind of feel a responsibility to watch her sentencing since I'm the one who reported her to the police. As much as I don't want to feel it, I do have a little bit of guilt about bringing her in. But then I remind myself that it isn't my fault she got arrested. It's hers. I'm not the one who was toting illegal drugs in my purse, and I'm also not the one who neglected her child. She's the one who committed all those egregious acts. I'm just the one who put an end to all of it. The trial is 3 hours from now, and I still haven't decided what I'm going to do. I guess I'll update after I make my decision. I did end up going to my mom's trial yesterday. It was a difficult choice to make, but I'm glad I did. It was hard seeing her like that in an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs, but honestly, otherwise she looked better than ever. She was completely sober, and she didn't look as tired or disheveled as she usually did. At first, when they brought her into the courtroom, she saw me but didn't make eye contact with me. Normally, my mom would have been full of hatred towards a person who wronged her like I did. But that day, she actually seemed ashamed, like she knew she had messed up. I think that's the first time I ever saw her look remorseful. The case was pretty straightforward. There was no denying that my mom was carrying illegal amphetamines in her purse, so she was charged with a felony. She pleaded guilty, and that was that. The judge sentenced her to 10 years in prison, and the trial was over. As everyone was standing to leave, a man held my mother by the arm and began to lead her out of the room. That was when she made eye contact with me for the first time that day. There was a deep sadness in her eyes, but for some reason, I also sensed gratitude in her expression. Then she mouthed the words, "I'm sorry," to me. All I could do was nod in return. This was something I never expected. I thought my mother would hate me for the rest of her life for what I did, and that we would never be in contact again. But maybe this is exactly what she needed, what we both needed. Never once has my mom apologized to me for her behavior, so knowing she said those words lifted a weight off my shoulders that I didn't even know I was carrying. I don't know what's going to happen in future, but a small part of me hopes we may be able to mend our relationship one day. I'm not getting my hopes up too high, though. My mom has been in prison for 2 years now, and I never thought I would say this, but our relationship is better than it ever has been. I've been visiting her once a week ever since she was put away. It was difficult the first time because I was afraid of what our encounters would be like. But she actually thanked me for getting her the help she didn't realize she needed. She ended up getting her sentence lessened for good behavior and will be getting out 4 years from now. It's like she's a completely different person, and I can't wait to see how our relationship grows from here. NAH. I have actual tears over this story. That was a difficult thing you had to do, but I'm happy it worked out in the end for both of you. NAH. Wow. Initially, I thought that you were the biggest a-hole in the world for snitching on your mom. But I can see that in this situation, she was just a hurting addict and you were a hurting son, and that was the best thing you could have done for her. Kudos to you, man. My boyfriend and I have been together for 4 years, and we recently celebrated our anniversary. He got me a really beautiful necklace that has both our birthstones and our cats. I've been obsessed with it since he gave it, and I've been wearing it everywhere I can. His family throws monthly get togethers. We normally miss them since they aren't the nicest people to me, but he had promised them he'd come this time since it was his little sister's birthday. He told me I didn't have to go, but I felt a little bad if I let him deal with them alone, so I decided to come along too. The get together was fine until his friend, well, more like an ex friend, came up to me and started gushing over my necklace. I would have taken it as a normal compliment if I didn't know how the girl was. She has been in love with my boyfriend since they were teens, and apparently she has yet to let it go. My boyfriend saw how she was annoying me and took me away to get some more food, and when we came back, she came right back up to me and begged me to let her try on the necklace. What possessed her to even ask that is beyond me, but I politely declined and told her I wasn't comfortable with her doing that. She kept on pleading and telling me how she just wanted to see how it would look on her. I snapped at her, telling her she was pushing my boundaries and said, "For the love of God, please stop asking." She got upset and looked a bit teary-eyed. She went to the other room, dragging my boyfriend's little sister with her, and I could tell they were ranting about me. My boyfriend's mom pulled me aside and said I was being unreasonable, and if I had a heart in me, I would have just let the poor girl try it on. I walked away from her to go get my boyfriend so we could leave because I was seconds away from losing it, and I heard a couple of his family members talking about how much of a bitch I am. My boyfriend has been reassuring that I was completely right for how I acted and his ex-friend needed to let it go, but I still can't help but feel upset about it. I don't know if she was necessarily aware of the context of the necklace or that my boyfriend gave it to me, but I thought it was pretty obvious. I also did somewhat cause a scene at his sister's party, so that's making me feel like I'm wrong as well. NTA, no one has the right to demand your possessions. Once you said no, she should have immediately backed off. I can see why the family aren't people you want to spend time with. It also seems boyfriend doesn't want to spend much time with them either. Ignore what they say and listen to your boyfriend. He actually cares for you. I'm 26, female. My mom, 56, female, recently got into an argument with my brother, 35, male, and his husband, 32, male, which resulted in her being kicked out of brother's house. The thing is that my brother and his husband recently welcomed their fraternal twin boys via surrogacy. They already have a child they adopted, though. His name is Lucas, 5, male, and they adore him. They love him so much, and as Lucas was adopted at 1, he doesn't remember a life without my brother and his husband as his parents. We all love Lucas. He is a good, sweet, smart boy, and the fact that he is adopted is completely irrelevant to all of us. He, as the rest of the cousins. Brother and husband asked us to help them to handle Lucas's reaction to the newborn kids since he hasn't had the best one. Maybe he feels threatened? I mean, he has been the king in that house over the last years, and having kids over might be threatening to him. So they asked us to make him feel special, to assure him that he'll never be replaced. And we have. They have also put an extra effort in this by taking him out to special bonding activities. My brother and his husband welcomed the twins last week, and we visited them to welcome the new family members. My mom was also there, and while she carried one of the boys, she said, "It actually feels good to carry a grandchild I'm related to." And the worst part is that Lucas was there and heard it. His eyes were sobbing after hearing it, and his fathers tried to comfort him. Mom tried to apologize, but they kicked her out. It's been a couple of days, and my brother doesn't allow her to see the boys. He doesn't answer the phone when she calls. She even tried to take Lucas out on a bonding activity to apologize, but my brother refused. My brother says that if she said that, it's because she doesn't consider Lucas an actual or a full grandchild, so he isn't willing to expose his son to that toxic behavior. My mom complains and says it's just a single mistake. They should forget and focus on the fact that she's been a terrific grandma to Lucas. So I told her that she deserves to be excluded from her grandchildren's life, at least for now. They might come to terms in the future. Because of her comments and hurting Lucas's feelings, she cried and called AH, who is also making a big deal about it. Auntie A, your mom needs to do some self-reflection to see how damaging her statement was. It's not that it was one mistake, it's that it was a really, really bad one. She may be one of those types of people that invalidates other people's feelings and thinks she can just brush it under the rug. Your brother ain't having it. She better dig deep and have a really heartfelt apology, as well as showing how she's grown from this mistake. Otherwise, you bet she earned that exclusion.